Okay, so we were talking about insurance, and I want to give you, there's new news on insurance. We heard Blue Cross Blue Shield's covering and things like that, that the reason that insurance companies do or do not pay, we sometimes say is because they're minions of the devil. And we don't really think that. The insurance companies are most of the time trying to do the right thing. And then imagine that they're trying to make a decision on somebody's heart surgery or heart treatment. So think of a patient, for example, who has heart problems. They could go and see a herbalist, an acupuncturist. They could see a medical doctor, and they could see a surgeon. And they might see the herbalist say, take cat's claw. Or they could say, take chamomile tea. They could go see a medical doctor, and they could say, take verapamil and atenolol for your heart. They could go see a cardiologist, they might say, I need to do an angioplasty for your heart. And then they see a surgeon, and the surgeon says, you need heart surgery. Okay, now, the insurance company has to decide they're going to pay for somebody and maybe not pay for somebody else. They might decide to pay for the herbalist or the acupuncturist or the medical doctor or the angioplasty doctor or the surgeon. So how do they decide? Well, sometimes everybody agrees. There's no disagreement. So if you have appendicitis, almost everybody agrees. There's very little disagreement what should happen if you have appendicitis. You get it cut out. That's easy. In areas of controversy, then basically the insurance companies use two resources. One is expert opinion. Okay? And that kind of makes sense because you get the best experts and see what they say. But sometimes the experts may be a little off from the latest research. So as an example, many years ago, when I was being trained as a surgeon, the treatment for women's breast cancer was a modified radical or a radical mastectomy. And a group of surgeons in Italy came up with the idea of just taking a lump and doing radiation therapy. And it took almost 20 years for the United States surgical community to completely change over and insurance to change over and things like that. So how do you make those decisions? Well, a group of leaders in the United States in medicine, surgery, insurance, and government have come up with this idea that even if you have experts saying one thing, that the scientific medical literature sometimes trumps expert opinion. And the scientific literature is a bunch of publications written by doctors and other specialists talking about experiments. Okay? And it turns out those reports that you find in the medical literature have different power. One is you could write up an article saying, I saw somebody, I gave them herbs or chamomile tea or surgery, and they got better. And that is called a level 3 article. It's not very powerful, and it shouldn't necessarily change your idea. Level 2 articles are you say, I've seen 1,000 patients, and we saw another 1,000 patients, and we looked at both groups, and it seems like one treatment might be better than another. And that's called level 2. But level 1 is a randomized, controlled, prospective trial. And that's where they take two people, they flip a coin, and you get treatment A and they get treatment B. And if you find at the end of that trial that treatment A is better than B, then A is probably really better than B. It's because it's got level 1 evidence. And last summer in Paris, at the International Federation for Surgery of Obesity, 3 randomized controlled prospective trials looked at the MGB versus the lap band, and the MGB versus the Roux-en-Y, and the MGB versus the new sleeve gastrectomy. In every one of those level 1 randomized controlled trials, the MGB was best. And in fact, how much better? Can we give a level? Well, in one of the studies, the MGB was compared to the new surgery called the sleeve. Have you kind of heard about the sleeve gastrectomy at all? Sleeve looks like our stomach, but with no bypass. That long, narrow stomach that we do, theirs looks like ours. but they don't do any bypass. Okay? So they took diabetics, and half of them randomly got a sleeve, and half randomly got an MGB. At the end of 2 years, half of the sleeve diabetics were cured. Pretty good. How many diabetics cured in the MGB group? 93%. And we just did a recent study of our diabetics, and 93% are cured at 3 years. So in that study, we can say, randomized controlled trial said we're better than the sleeve, but not just better, but in that study, by that measure, we're twice as good. Okay. Now the reason I tell you all this is that information needs to go to your insurance company. Because when they see randomized controlled trial, they oftentimes will pay for that and no longer call it experimental. Plus, besides those 3, there were 2 previous randomized controlled trials with MGB versus Roux-en-Y, and in both cases the MGB was better. So now we have 5 articles that refer to scientific randomized controlled trials. In every case, the MGB is better, and insurance companies need to hear that because they often will say, okay, we'll pay for it. And then as one more follow-up, we actually happen to have in our group here this morning a sleeve patient who had a sleeve. And she's not here to say why the sleeve was good, she's here to get an MGB.
On her sleeve, will you just do a bypass and then
We'll look at her stomach and probably trim it. A lot of sleeves are made fairly big and floppy. So
I think mine's cheap. I mean, I can eat so much.
Do they also, when I've been in several surgeries with him, I've stood in, do they do the same thing as far as the connection at the esophagus, same size as the sleeve, so she can eat without, the anastomosis there, it's not like a pencil.
They don't have an anastomosis for a sleeve.
It's...
Now they just cut out the outside edge and throw away the outside edge of the stomach. Prior to that, she had a failed lap band.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh.
So she's what we call in the business a 3-time loser. But this is it. Now you came to the man.
Yeah, now you got it right.
No, you did. Yeah, so we're excited about that, and we have seen a lot of failed lap bands. We see a lot of sleeve patients who are starting to call us now, and so they're in the process of getting. But you'll be number 1. You'll be our first sleeve. So, anyways, back to insurance companies. This will be a video that you can use. When you go to your insurance company and they refuse to pay, say I want to appeal it, and then you're going to want to email me to get those references to submit to your insurance company to say, you said it's experimental. Dr. Rutledge has been doing it now for 13 years, and 5,600 patients, and there are 40 articles about the MGB, 38 of which are positive, and 2 say that they have patients of mine who got an upset stomach and they did a revision. And too bad they should have called me, because most of the time you don't need a revision for an upset stomach. So insurance is starting to pay, but you do have to fight them. So I would try that.